Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. You guys have been exploring Eastern philosophy lately. So today, we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating lecture on karma yoga and freedom.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, this lecture is packed with thought-provoking ideas. I think it's going to shift your perspective.
It definitely challenges some common assumptions.
Yeah.
For example, most people think karma is just about
Right.
actions and consequences.
Like what goes around comes around kind of thing.
Yeah, but this lecture goes deeper. It frames karma as this universal law of causation.
Okay.
It's not just about what you do, but about the inherent interconnectedness of cause and effect
Okay.
that governs everything in the universe.
So it's like a cosmic web where everything's linked,
Precisely.
and every action creates a ripple effect.
Exactly.
Okay.
The lecture uses the imagery of a flowing current creating a whirlpool.
Hmm.
Our lives are caught in this constant cycle of cause and effect,
Wow.
much like that whirlpool.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
But, okay, so if everything is governed by this law of causation,
Right,
where does free will fit into all this?
right.
This lecture seems to argue that true free will might be an illusion.
Yeah, it's a pretty radical concept.
It is.
And it tackles it head on.
Yeah.
Here's a direct quote.
Yep.
Within the confines of our universe defined by space, time, and causation,
Mm.
genuine free will, as we conventionally understand it, is impossible.
So the lecture is saying that our choices, our actions,
Yeah.
are all predetermined by this chain of cause and effect.
In a sense.
It makes you wonder if everything's already set in motion.
Right.
What's the point of even trying?
That's a natural question.
Yeah.
But the lecture frames this idea in a surprisingly empowering way.
Okay.
It's not about resigning yourself to fate,
Right.
but rather shifting your focus from battling against the inevitable to understanding how to work with these universal laws.
So instead of resisting the current, we learn to navigate it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this leads to a fascinating exploration of freedom.
Yeah.
The lecture argues that true freedom lies beyond the limits of our perceived universe.
Okay, so we're going deep here.
Yeah.
How do we even begin to reach this beyond?
Well, the lecture outlines two distinct paths.
Okay.
The first is neti-neti,
Yeah.
meaning not this, not this.
Okay.
It's a process of negation,
Okay.
systematically detaching from the material world and all its trappings.
So it's about recognizing that true freedom isn't found in external things, but lies within ourselves.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, the other path, iti, meaning this might seem counterintuitive.
Okay.
It's about fully embracing the world,
Okay.
experiencing it deeply, and through that process, detaching from it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Also, like using the world as a stepping stone to go beyond it.
Yeah.
I'm curious, which path resonates more with you?
Both paths have their own challenges and rewards. Neti-neti requires immense discipline and mental strength to resist the pull of the material world,
Right.
while iti demands a certain fearlessness to dive headfirst into the complexities of life.
So two very different approaches,
Yeah.
but ultimately leading to the same destination,
Right.
transcending the limitations of our perceived universe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But how does this connect back to karma yoga?
Yeah. Where does action fit into all of this?
That's where the lecture really gets to the heart of karma yoga.
Okay.
It introduces the idea of working incessantly but without attachment to the fruits of your labor.
So it's not about becoming passive or avoiding action,
Right.
but about changing our relationship to work itself.
Precisely.
Okay.
The lecture uses this beautiful analogy of the lotus leaf.
Okay.
Just as water cannot cling to the surface of a lotus leaf, it just rolls off. We can be in the world engaged in action, but not be bogged down by the negative consequences of attachment to outcomes.
That's a powerful image. It's about acting with intention and purpose,
Right.
but letting go of the need to control the results.
Yeah.
But how do we cultivate this lotus leaf mindset?
That's the big question.
Yeah. How do we actually apply this in our daily lives?
Well, it's one thing to understand it intellectually, but
Yeah.
how do we actually cultivate that lotus leaf mindset in the real world?
Yeah. Yeah.
The lecture seems to suggest that a big part of it involves redefining our understanding of beauty.
That's intriguing.
It is, yeah.
We're so often told that fulfilling our duties is a good thing,
Yeah.
a sign of responsibility.
Right, exactly.
How can duty be a source of misery?
Well, the lecture suggests that it's about the motivation behind our actions.
Okay.
If we're acting out of a sense of compulsion or fear, constantly worried about what we should be doing, then it becomes a burden.
Yeah.
It's like carrying a heavy weight on our shoulders,
Right.
preventing us from experiencing the lightness and freedom that karma yoga offers.
So it's not about abandoning our responsibilities,
No, not at all.
but about shifting our perspective,
Exactly.
finding a way to act from a place of inner alignment rather than external pressure.
Yes, precisely.
Okay.
The lecture encourages us to question our motivations.
Okay.
Are we driven by a genuine desire to contribute or by a fear of judgment or failure?
Right.
How can we shift our perspective to experience work as a form of liberation rather than a burden?
That's a powerful question
Yeah, it is.
for all of us to consider.
Yeah.
It reminds me of another key theme the lecture explores.
Yeah.
This idea of renunciation.
Oh, yeah.
That word can sound a bit intimidating.
It can be.
Does it mean giving up all our possessions and living like a monk?
Not necessarily. The lecture clarifies that this concept of renunciation isn't about abandoning material possessions.
Okay.
It's about renouncing the ego's attachment to I and mine.
Okay.
The clinging that creates suffering.
So it's an internal process of detachment
Right.
rather than an external change in circumstances. But how do we detach from things that are so deeply ingrained in our sense of self?
That's a good question. The lecture shares a compelling story
Okay.
about a yogi living in a cave,
Okay.
completely detached from his individual identity and possessions.
Wow. Okay.
He embodies this radical non-attachment,
Okay.
finding true contentment and liberation in his simple existence.
That's a pretty striking image.
It is.
But it's hard to imagine living that way in today's world.
Sure.
It seems like a level of detachment that's almost unattainable for most of us.
Well, the story is meant to be an inspiration, not a literal prescription.
Right.
It highlights that true freedom is an internal state,
Okay.
not an external circumstance.
Okay.
It's about cultivating that inner detachment even while engaging in the world.
So it's not about escaping life, but about transforming our relationship to it.
Yeah.
This reminds me of another point the lecture makes about the importance of those who work silently and selflessly behind the scenes.
That's right. Yeah, the lecture argues that often the greatest impact comes from those who act without seeking recognition or reward.
Right.
The unsung heroes who work tirelessly for the betterment of others without any desire for personal gain.
That's a humbling thought.
It is.
It makes you realize that true change often happens quietly without fanfare.
It does.
But it also raises a question.
Sure.
Isn't there a natural human desire to be acknowledged for our efforts? To see the fruits of our labor? How does the lecture address that?
It's true that we often crave validation, and the lecture acknowledges that.
Okay.
But it argues that this desire for external recognition can actually become a hindrance on the path to freedom.
Okay.
It reinforces the ego's attachment to I and mine,
Right.
ultimately perpetuating the cycle of suffering.
So it's not that recognition is inherently bad,
No.
but that our motivation for seeking it can be problematic.
Exactly.
If our actions are solely driven by a desire for praise or reward, then we're missing the point of karma yoga.
Precisely.
Okay.
The lecture emphasizes that true fulfillment arises from the act of giving itself, not from the recognition it might bring.
Yeah.
It's about finding joy in the process of contributing to something greater than ourselves
Right.
without getting caught up in the need for external validation.
It's like the difference between giving a gift out of genuine generosity versus giving it with the expectation of receiving something in return.
Exactly.
One comes from a place of pure intention, the other from a desire for personal gain.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And the lecture then goes on to introduce another key principle: surrendering the fruits of our actions to a higher power.
Okay.
This concept might sound a bit mystical at first,
Yeah.
but it's actually incredibly practical.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure.
What does it mean to surrender the fruits of our actions?
It's about releasing the attachment to specific outcomes.
Okay.
Instead of clinging to the desire for particular results, we offer our actions to a higher purpose,
Okay.
trusting that whatever unfolds is for the best.
So it's about letting go of the need to control everything and trusting in something bigger than ourselves. But doesn't that contradict the idea of taking responsibility for our actions?
Not at all.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we're not the sole authors of our destiny.
Okay.
There are forces at play that are beyond our comprehension.
Right.
And sometimes the best course of action is to simply surrender and allow things to unfold as they may.
Okay.
It doesn't mean becoming passive, but rather acting with intention while releasing the need to micromanage every aspect of the outcome.
So it sounds like surrendering the fruits of our actions is really about cultivating a deeper trust in the process of life itself.
Yeah.
But isn't there a risk of becoming complacent or passive if we're not attached to outcomes?
That's a great question, and the lecture addresses that concern directly.
Okay.
It's not about becoming indifferent or inactive, but about recognizing that true agency lies in aligning ourselves with the universal flow of life,
Okay.
not in trying to force things to go our way.
So it's more about working with the current rather than against it.
Exactly.
It reminds me of that saying, let go and let God. But this concept isn't tied to any specific religion, is it?
Not at all.
Okay.
The idea of surrendering to a higher power is a universal principle.
Okay.
It simply means acknowledging that there's an intelligence at work in the universe
Right.
that's far greater than our limited human understanding.
It's about cultivating a sense of humility
Yeah.
and recognizing that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
The lecture also stresses that this surrender doesn't mean we become passive bystanders.
Right.
It emphasizes the importance of self-effort,
Yeah.
actively engaging in the world.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The lecture uses a powerful metaphor to illustrate this,
Okay.
comparing our lives to a furnace.
Okay.
It says the world is like a tremendous fury furnace,
Wow.
where the fire of duty scorches everyone. It's a metaphor for the challenges and difficulties we inevitably face in life.
So we're all being forged in this fiery crucible,
Yeah,
tested and tempered by life's experiences.
precisely.
Yeah.
But the lecture offers a way to navigate this fiery furnace without getting burned.
Okay.
It suggests that by surrendering to a higher power and dedicating our actions to the greater good,
Okay.
we can find a sense of peace and liberation, even amidst the chaos.
It's about finding that inner resilience
Yeah.
that allows us to face challenges with courage and equanimity, knowing that we're not alone in our struggles.
Right.
But if we're simply instruments in the hands of a higher power,
Right.
what role does our individual will play?
Right.
Do we have any say in shaping our destiny?
The lecture acknowledges this tension between surrender and free will.
Okay.
It suggests that for those who don't believe in a higher power, the path to freedom requires a strong will and the ability to discern between what's real and unreal,
Right.
permanent and impermanent.
Okay.
It's about using our intellect and willpower to navigate the path to liberation.
So it's about developing a clear understanding of the nature of reality
Yeah,
and using that understanding to guide our actions and choices.
exactly.
So we become our own inner compass, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But for those who do believe in a higher power,
Right.
the path of surrender becomes a powerful source of support.
Okay.
By trusting in a divine plan,
Mm-hmm.
they can release the burden of trying to figure everything out on their own
Right.
and find peace in knowing they're being guided towards their highest good.
So it's like having a cosmic GPS system guiding us on our journey.
That's a great analogy.
But regardless of our beliefs,
Yeah.
the lecture seems to emphasize that true freedom comes from detaching from the fruits of our actions.
It does.
Why is this so crucial?
Well, the lecture argues that when we become attached to specific outcomes, we set ourselves up for disappointment and suffering.
Yeah.
It's like constantly chasing after an elusive goal, never fully satisfied with what we achieve.
Right.
We become slaves to our desires, constantly seeking happiness in external things
Right.
that are ultimately impermanent and fleeting.
It's like trying to hold on to water.
Yeah.
The tighter we grasp, the more it slips through our fingers.
Exactly.
So true freedom comes from releasing that grip, from finding contentment in the present moment,
Yeah,
regardless of the outcome.
precisely.
Okay.
The lecture uses the beautiful image of the lotus leaf to illustrate this.
Right.
Just as the lotus leaf remains pure and untouched by the water that flows over it,
Yeah.
we too can remain unaffected by the negative consequences of attachment if we learn to act from a place of non-attachment and selflessness.
It's about cultivating that inner strength and resilience
Yeah.
that allows us to navigate the ups and downs of life without getting swept away by our desires and expectations.
Yeah.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
Yeah.
And the lecture concludes by reminding us that this is not a one-time achievement,
Right.
but a lifelong practice.
Right.
It's about constantly reminding ourselves to let go of the ego's attachments and to dedicate our actions to a higher purpose.
Yeah.
It's about weaving these principles into the very fabric of our lives.
This has been such an insightful deep dive into karma yoga and the concept of freedom.
It has.
It's given me a whole new perspective on how to approach life with purpose and intention
Yeah.
while letting go of the need to control outcomes.
Yeah.
I'm feeling inspired to put these principles into practice.
I think we all are.
Yeah, thank you for walking us through this lecture.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Yeah.
Remember, the journey doesn't end here.
Right.
Keep questioning, keep practicing,
Yeah.
and most importantly, keep an open mind and heart
Right.
as you continue to explore the profound teachings of karma yoga.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of discovery.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.